All right, this is awesome. It looks like finally this year at BlizzCon, we're going to get a new FPS game from Blizzard, and it's going to be a StarCraft game. Now, you might remember, Blizzard has actually cancelled, well, 2 StarCraft FPS games. You had Ghost, which was cancelled, the famous console game, obviously, where you played as a ghost. It was cancelled. It never actually reached any kind of like finish point in its development, although there is footage of that game out there, but obviously it was all pre-release stuff. I think it was taken from an E3. And then there was Ares, which was this, it was a take on Battlefield meets StarCraft, which could have been quite interesting, but that was cancelled back in 2019. Anyway, take a look at this because it is super cool. So this is Windows Central, and Jez Corden is reporting here. He's like heavily into Windows, Xbox reporting, and he's going over what's going to come to Xbox in the year and all of that stuff. And obviously Blizzard's owned by Xbox now. So we've got a bunch of information here we can actually go over. And of course, we're only interested in the FPS stuff. But what we've got is this passage where he says, at BlizzCon 2026, I thoroughly expect to see new expansions revealed for Diablo, which goes without saying, I guess. Alongside World of Warcraft's The Last Titan, we should also get major updates for Overwatch and Hearthstone, and potentially other new mobile game reveals. There has been long-held rumours of an Overwatch mobile game on the horizon, for example, and I've heard another Warcraft mobile game project is in gestation. Now, I think we should probably just touch on that for a second, because, yeah, there is a Overwatch mobile game in development. It's been in development for a while. We can piece some kind of bits together with the actual lead of the Overwatch franchise and I think of mobile and live game development was out in China recently. I think that's got something to do with the mobile game and the teams they're working with in that region for it as well. But I fully expect to see that something that will get announced this year at BlizzCon if it doesn't launch earlier. I think that's definitely going to be a thing. So a mobile version of Overwatch, it's 100% coming. But what's interesting here in this article is it says the headline for BlizzCon 2026 is most likely going to be StarCraft. It was previously reported that StarCraft is getting a third-person shooter treatment, and I confirmed these rumors were true via my own sources a while ago. And then goes on to talk about what Bethesda could get and all of that stuff. But of course, we're only focusing on the StarCraft stuff here. But isn't that interesting? So you may also remember as well, Blizzard were actually hiring for developers to work on an open world shooter. So if you come over here and take a look at this with me, you can see this is taken from VGC, and this is back in November the 15th, 2024. But yeah, they were basically looking for developers to work on an open world shooter game, and they weren't actually explaining what that was. It was just a very ambiguous job sort of description on their website. Obviously, these are not live anymore, so I can't show you them. But what is interesting is it is by the ex-Far Cry boss, Dan Hay, who, of course, moved over to Blizzard to work on an unannounced project. So this is LinkedIn, and yeah, this is Dan Hay. He, as you can see his description, he now is a GM and vice president of Blizzard Entertainment. It doesn't really explain what he's doing. He just says he's a strategic leader in AAA game development, specializing in building and scaling world-class teams, live service ecosystems, and revenue-generating franchises. I thrive at the intersection of creative vision and business strategy, ensuring games reach massive global audiences while maintaining innovation and engagement. And yeah, he just says, look, he's a vice president and GM, but what is he doing? Well, this guy worked for 10 years at Ubisoft, and yeah, you can see his list, right? So he's Far Cry producer, executive producer, then he's a franchise executive producer on Far Cry, franchise executive director on Far Cry. So I guess like what I'm trying to say here is, what does all of this mean? What could we be looking at in terms of a StarCraft shooter? Well, we've got the Far Cry boss who's been working on game development at Blizzard for over 4 years now, and this game is going to get announced, we believe, this year. What could it look like? We know that their initial project of a third-person shooter, Ghost, didn't work. That was years ago, though, so I don't think we can really count that as a modern attempt. But the game from 2019, like I said, I firmly believe, according to my sources, that that was a Battlefield-style game. It was StarCraft Battlefield with like 3 factions basically on the same map fighting each other for area control. I think there were comparisons that could be made to PlanetSide, which I kind of distinctly remember making these comparisons a while ago to PlanetSide. But I'll tell you what, let me fire up the PlanetSide trailer and you'll see what I mean. Yeah, so this is the PlanetSide trailer from like 13 years ago now. But basically, PlanetSide was this massive, persistent war where you could join one of 3 factions and you were constantly fighting for control over the territory. It never ended. If Blizzard could do something like that for StarCraft, I think it'd be really cool. Because I think what they might be trying to do is, if you think about it, try and take inspiration from games like Helldivers and put that into a StarCraft style. I mean, hell, it might even be just a third-person shooter like Helldivers, cooperative, and you go against, you're just Marines against the Zerg. It could just play out like that, and then maybe throw in the Protoss, possibly the Zelnaga as well you could throw in. Or it could be you can play as those iconic races against each other. I think it's going to be really interesting. Also, this trailer really does show its age. But yeah, I think I used to love playing as I used to fly the Mosquitoes all the time. As the Terrans, I loved it. I absolutely... In fact, there's videos on my channel of me, like, I've got guide videos of how to pilot the Mosquito. I was an absolute weapon with that thing. Amazing. Oh, this is amazing. Also, you've got to take into consideration the key art for BlizzCon. Now, typically, when Blizzard releases the art for an upcoming BlizzCon, it will include characters from franchises that will feature prominently in the showcase. Now, obviously, we've got Thrall there, or Thrall. We've got Diablo Woman. What? I forgot. Lilith. That's Lilith, right? Anyway, Diablo Woman. We've got a StarCraft Marine, and then we've got Doomfist, looking fancy in Hearthstone cards. I mean, given the placement of the Marine, it probably indicates that, hey, we're the main sort of show, and get ready for it. But it might not be. Again, take it with a pinch of salt. But generally, they do feature the game, which is going to sort of be the main, selling point of the event. But I'm going to be honest with you guys, I am friggin' hyped for this. It's about time Blizzard did something new. If they can produce and deliver another FPS game, sign me up for that. The StarCraft universe, I love that anyway. It just depends what they give us. I think in my wildest dreams, I'd love that PlanetSide style, massive, never-ending combat, fighting over a planet or even multiple planets, and there's just constant war going on. That'd be really cool. But I'd take a Battlefield-style game if they want to go back to that. Or I would even take a Helldivers-style cooperative game where you're completing missions and objectives. It would be really interesting if they put together something like Destiny. That'd be really interesting to me, that would. Almost like Blizzard's take on a FPS MMO. I think that'd be really interesting. But again, remember, the people involved in this and the man in charge is from Far Cry, and Far Cry is a big open world. So we could come back sort of full circle to what we thought a few years ago, was that he has been brought in to work on a sort of RPG-style FPS game. Maybe this could be a single-player experience, but I think that would be very unlikely because Blizzard is generally focused on multiplayer experiences. All right, guys, thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, then let me know what you think about this in the comments below. But I'm actually really hyped for this. I'm so hyped it made me want to jump on and knock out a video on this, because I think this could be, hopefully, a really interesting game, at least, to see its development. All right, guys, I've been Starlosa, and I'll catch you lovely lot on the next video. See you soon.